hip replacement surgery recovery. We're going to go through what to expect, recovery afterwards, do's, don'ts, and just hopefully get you ready to understand what it is that you need to do post-operatively. So let's go. Now, hip replacements are a huge surgical procedure, don't get me wrong, but they are so successful and people can really have such a great outcome at the back of it. And really, it can open opportunities for individuals who have arthritic hips that are really debilitated for a long period of time and haven't been able to do quite a lot. Through this video, what I really want to focus on is some of the key points that I always go through with my patients to educate them in regards to what to expect, what's normal, recovery, timeframes, rehab, and also expectations. And I think the most important thing when preparing for a surgery like this is just understanding what it is that you're going to be going through. The better understanding that you have, actually it really helps you get ready to prepare for all the things that are going to be kind of cropping up and that you're going to have to deal with. So let's start from the early stage, right? So you're at the point of needing a hip replacement. So if you've got an arthritic hip, you've done all the stuff that you've tried to do, it hasn't worked, and you're on the waiting list to have a hip replacement. My first advice with this is PREHAB. PREHAB for me is so valuable. Now, not everyone gets the opportunity to do PREHAB, but if you do, it really has quite a big value to add. It's got two additional values here. It's got, on the first side of things, from a physical perspective. That essentially means that you're trying to get and maintain whatever level of strength and conditioning and activity in the hip and in the body, especially obviously the lower limbs, that you can kind of get yourself in a great position pre-op. Now, loads of things, don't get me wrong, you won't be able to do, but it's about trying to maintain what you've got. So if your hip is restricted in certain movements and certain positions, but other movements you can do, finding that sweet spot of maybe 4 or 5 things that you can do exercise-wise that isn't provoking your symptoms. It might be modified, it might be limited, it might be different to what the norm is, but it's able to kind of give you the chance to maintain doing some level of exercise. Whether it's walking, whether it's sitting on a recumbent bike, whether it's doing some isolated like quadriceps or hamstring or glute exercises, the PREHAB really enables you to just try and maintain the level of conditioning up to the surgical date. Now, the difficulty is you can't do a lot of things because the hip is so painful, but there's also a whole bunch of stuff that you can do, and that's really important to try and identify. And obviously, if you struggle to do that on your own, get a specialist clinician that can help guide you and give you some insight with that. The important thing here is you're not going to make it worse. If you do more exercise at that stage, it's not going to accelerate the process. It's not going to make your symptoms become more problematic. You just want to find something that you can maintain. And by doing that, you're also giving yourself that psychological aspect. That's the other part too. You know, the psychology of being a bit worried and anxious about something is very normal. But by trying to do prehab, and if you do it with someone who is like a hip specialist or a physio, you're also getting your questions answered. You're also getting that support, and you're getting that ability to get a bit more psychologically resilient and prepared for what it is that you're going to be going through. And I think that's really important. That preparation is so key, and I think holds a lot more value than people give credit for. So for me, that first port of call is prehab, trying to set the scene as to what's going on, and that kind of moves you towards surgery. Now, don't get me wrong, like these are advanced procedures, right? And we've got things like minimally invasive, robot assisted, loads of things that allow the recovery to be as quick as possible. But the type of hip replacement and procedure still varies across country to country and throughout those countries as well, from surgeon to surgeon. So the recovery though is ultimately the same. It's just obviously dependent on how quickly and how much the speed of that would vary from these procedures. Now, the thing to consider here is this is a big operation. There's no getting around that. But once you appreciate that, it's about understanding what those early stages are going to be like. So if you're in hospital overnight or one night or 2 nights, the first real priority is to get you up on your feet and using your crutches and putting some weight through it and walking. It's really important to understand that that is completely safe. Walking, mobilizing, not just from a cardiovascular perspective, but also just getting the joint loaded and moving is really key. It's almost part of that surgical follow-up procedure to get your weight going through it. It will feel alien. You know, you're in hospital and you'll think, oh, it feels weird. I shouldn't be pushing through it. It's too painful. But actually it's counterintuitive, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're meant to be laying on your back relaxing, but rest is also good. So it's about finding that balance. Through the initial stages post-operatively, you have to be confident to move. Patients who are confident, that are a bit more like tolerant and just want to get on with it, those are the ones, when they're positive with their kind of psychology, that tend to do better in those early and latter stages. So be confident, listen to the physio support, be confident to walk with it, weight bear through it, and try and get yourself as functionally independent as possible within the parameters of what you've had and what you're allowed to do. Now, hip precautions are sometimes given to some and not to others. That's only dependent on the consultant's prerogative, because there are some that do, some that don't. Historically, precautions have been given to mitigate the hip dislocating. And actually, medical research in more recent years has demonstrated that doesn't mitigate dislocation rate. Dislocation rate is very, very, very rare and minimal anyway, often down to the kind of operative like measurement and fitting rather than anything else. But actually what precautions can do is inhibit progress, because it reinforces things like fear avoidant behavior and people are a bit more scared to do things. But if you're being told to do precautions, I would find out what your parameters are. What are they, and when can I stop doing them? Because you're not going to be doing them forever. There's always going to be a cutoff of when you stop. And if you haven't been given them, it's often because the surgeon is just happy for you to just use common sense and don't do what you don't think you can do. Often it's a quite safe thing to kind of get on with activity-wise afterwards. So those early stages are key, but then it kind of progresses. And if as you go into week 2, as you go into week 3, the focus is on function. Let's try and get you walking better. Let's try and get you walking without the walking aids. Let's try and get you using stairs unaided. Because realistically, like, this is a robust procedure. You know, this is a robust procedure. We don't want to be too cautious and too slow, but I'm mindful that this is advice that would vary dependent on age and activity and certain other factors from individual to individual. But as a whole, the priority in that first month is really trying to get someone as functionally able as possible. As you do that, this is what will happen. It's not uncommon for it to be painful. Like, it's a big procedure. It's not going to be pain-free. That's impossible. But as you start to do more, as you start to become more active, the pain, where it might have settled down, might have started to come up again. Now, if there's no other contributing factor to it, and it is just the fact that the joint is a bit sore and the things around it are a bit sore because you're doing more than you were before, that pain is normal and it will settle down. So don't be too despondent. Don't think that something bad has happened. And if you are concerned, obviously seek support from a medical professional just to kind of understand what it is. I guess that's possibly like needing your pain to kind of be addressed from that perspective. Now, as things progress, the absolute goal is making it bespoke to the individual, what your goals are, what your aspirations from recovery are, and what you're trying to get back to. And for some, it might just be that you want a pain-free, active life, doing things day to day. And for others, they might be a particular exercise that they want to get back to. As the weeks and months progress with rehab, and really it will take months, because to get from day 0 to the point of where someone is completely back to normal, it takes months and months and months. You know, you've got to give yourself a good 6-month block to get to that point. But maybe the more active, the more younger individuals will be far quicker than that. And really, for those who have done sport, who have done exercise, and maybe fit into that more young adult population, may well, by the end of the 2nd or even the 3rd month, start to feel like, well, actually, I kind of feel pretty good. I don't feel like there's much restriction there. And that's really key to consider. The most important thing with all of this stuff that I kind of haven't probably like mentioned enough, but I really want to kind of focus on a little bit now, is like what the expectations are from those initial like moments after surgery and the first 2 to 3 weeks after. Like, patients often feel that the pain that they're experiencing is something that's gone wrong or something that is of concern. And obviously, this is just generic advice. If you are concerned, don't rely on just me. Seek support from a medical professional. But when you appreciate the fact that this is such a big surgical procedure and it probably is going to hurt a little bit, you start to kind of understand, well, look, that's normal. Like, it would be more abnormal if you didn't have that. And over a period of time, things will start to get a little bit more easier, and then you'll feel a bit more confident. And use pain relief, right? If it is painful, don't be adverse to taking the painkillers. I think there's that misconception that if you take pain relief, it will mask it, or if you don't feel it, it might make you kind of susceptible to damaging it. Like, that's not how it works. So just be a bit sensible, pragmatic, see how it goes. And the probably like one of the key points to finish on, and something that I would really be quite keen to push, is make sure that you're optimizing your recovery as much as possible, right? Diet, activity, hydration, sleep, but really ultimately, most importantly, make sure that you get that physio rehab afterward, irrespective of your age and activity. I'm a big believer of making sure that you rehabilitate it properly, get someone supporting you, and get those questions answered that you're not really too sure. Am I allowed to do this? Should I do this? Get that support, get that guidance, and see how it goes. And if you are someone who's booked in to have it, wish you all the best. If you are someone who has had it and you've got a good outcome, comment below, and we've got more videos coming up in regards to exercises and some rehab tips and tricks post-operatively.